Welcome back to BNG Hockey, where it's always black and gold. Don Sweeney finally decided to pick up the phone and make a deal, and it's a big one. Let's talk about it. The Bruins finally addressed their need of a legit top four defenseman by acquiring Hampus Lindholm from the Anaheim Ducks. In this video, we're going to take a look at the trade. I'll talk about all the details that come along with that. We'll look at Lindholm's career so far and talk about what he brings as a player. We'll also take a look at the assets the Bruins are losing. Then I'll give you my thoughts on the deal, and we'll finish off with how this move impacts the Bruins moving forward. The Bruins acquired defenseman Hampus Lindholm and defenseman Cody Curran from the Anaheim Ducks. Little side note in this deal, the Anaheim Ducks are retaining 50% of Lindholm's contract, and that's a very important factor in this trade between the two teams. In return, the Ducks will get a 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 second-round pick, a 2024 second-round pick, defenseman Urho Vaakanainen, and defenseman Jon Moore. You'll get my thoughts on this trade later on in the video, but I am going to break it down a little bit to kind of help you understand how they got to this price. No matter how you look at it, it's a lot of assets being given up by the Bruins. But it does make sense, and at the end of the day, you're getting a player you've needed for a very long time in Hampus Lindholm. The way I looked at this deal is you absolutely have to start out with a first-round pick and a prospect. Every trade deadline, if you're getting any player that's actually going to help your team, you have to start off with a high pick and a prospect. So the first in Vaakanainen was just automatically a part of the deal. Now, I will say I'm glad that the Bruins lose Vaakanainen instead of some of their better prospects, and we'll get to that later on in the video as well, but that's just non-negotiable. That's just where you start. Next, you got to outbid the other teams. That's where the second-round pick comes in. Now, I also think the second-round pick is thrown in there instead of a third-round pick because 50% of Lindholm's salary is being retained. And that's great for the Bruins so that they have more space so they can make other trades if they want to before Monday's trade deadline. And lastly, that other second-round pick, similar to when the Bruins moved on from Backes, they gave up a first-round pick in the Kasha deal, also to get Kasha, but mostly to unload David Backes' full contract. And they unload all of Jon Moore's contract, which runs for the rest of this season, as well as next, and that's why they have to give up the second-round pick. So even though it might seem like a lot on the surface, you have to remember you're getting a good player at the trade deadline when prices are high. You're getting a player off the books in Jon Moore, which helps you not only this season, but next year as well with cap flexibility. You're getting 50% retained on the Lindholm contract, and just to be nice, they threw in Kodie Curran, and we're going to talk about him as well. So now let's talk about the players that the Bruins are getting, and then we'll get into the assets that the Bruins are losing. Now, I know you're all dying to hear his stats and can't wait to hear about the impact that Cody Curran is going to make on the Boston Bruins roster. Fun fact for you, this guy's never even played in the NHL, so it's not like they're getting an incredible secondary piece in this trade. It's nothing more than a replacement for Jon Moore and Vaakanainen at the AHL level. And I've always believed in having a strong AHL team. I think it's good for overall development of your prospects and good to have a winning culture built in. If your AHL team wins and those kids get called up, they already expect to be playing for a competitive team. So I do like that they got this player simply to replace those other two. So Cody Curran is a 32-year-old, 6'2" left shot, left defenseman. He's signed for the rest of this season at a $1 million cap hit, and then he'll be a UFA. So if the Bruins don't like what they see, they can easily move on from him, and it's really not that big of a deal. This season, in 37 games with the San Diego Gulls of the AHL, he has 1 goal, 15 assists for a total of 16 points. As I said, not an incredible addition, but hey, you never know. Injuries happen in the playoffs. If they go through all their other depth defensemen, maybe Cody Curran will get a shot. Now it's time to talk about what the Bruins are getting from the real impact player in this trade, Hampus Lindholm. Hampus Lindholm is a 28-year-old, 6'4" left shot, left defenseman, originally selected 6th overall in the first round of the 2012 NHL entry draft by the Anaheim Ducks. He's played in 582 NHL games, scoring 57 goals, 165 assists, for a total of 222 points, and he's a career plus 74. This season in 61 games with the Ducks, he has 5 goals, 17 assists for a total of 22 points. And in case you were wondering where that would put him on the Bruins defense, that's currently second behind Charlie McAvoy in points by a defenseman. And this is a guy who averages over 22 minutes of time on ice, and a couple times this season and in his career, he's played over 30 minutes a night. So even though the points might not jump off the page, this is very much a legit top pairing guy who can play big minutes and will likely get more stats playing on a better Bruins team. Now let's talk about what the Bruins are losing in this trade. We'll start off with a guy who's hardly going to be a loss for the Bruins, and that's Jon Moore. Getting that money off the books was a huge win for the Bruins. He signed for this season and next at a cap hit of $2.75 million. And for a guy who's mostly been playing in the AHL, you definitely want that money off the books. And now the Bruins have a lot more flexibility this season and going into next season. So that was a huge win, and that's honestly addition by subtraction. Now, you could argue the Bruins are losing a little bit of depth, but I would also argue adding Lindholm only means that you're bumping guys further down the lineup and giving you more depth. And Jon Moore has been disappointing pretty much his entire career here in Boston. He was coming off some great seasons with the Devils and seemed to have some offensive upside when he signed the deal, but in 97 games, he only managed to score 6 goals, 13 assists for a total of 19 points, and was a -3 in his career with the Bruins. And this season, he only got in 7 games with 0 goals, 1 assist for a total of 1 point. So for Ducks fans looking to replace Lindholm, Jon Moore is definitely not that guy, and you should be looking at the other pieces if you want to be excited about this trade. Moving on now to the other player Anaheim will be getting in this deal, Urho Vaakanainen. He's been equally disappointing in his Bruins career, but in a different way. He's been pretty unlucky when it comes to injuries, and has kind of fallen out of favor multiple times in the organization. In fact, he's been in trade rumors for quite some time, so it's not too surprising to finally see him dealt. But he is only 23 years old, originally selected in the first round of the 2017 NHL entry draft, 18th overall. I do still think he has some offensive upside, but so far his NHL career has been pretty disappointing. He's only ended up playing in 31 NHL games with 0 goals, 6 assists for a total of 6 points, and is a career -2. He did play in 15 of those 31 games this season, again with 0 goals, but 4 assists for a total of 4 points. And I must say, he was impressing me this season with his play, and it did seem like Bruce Cassidy was at least trying to give him a bit more of a chance. Maybe that's because they were trying to trade him, so good on the Bruins to kind of showcase him a little bit and maybe get the Ducks to bite on him as one of their top prospects. When in reality, the Bruins probably kept a couple of good left shot defensemen who are better prospects and better long-term fits for the organization. And obviously you add Lindholm, if the Bruins are able to keep him around long-term, you're not going to miss Vaakanainen anyway. But if the Ducks are looking to get excited, this is a player who could potentially be something at the NHL level. The biggest thing the Bruins lose in this trade is obviously the draft picks. But if you look a little bit closer, they might not have done so bad and might know exactly what they're doing when it comes to giving up these draft picks. Starting with the first round pick. The Bruins did a fantastic job giving up a 2022 first round pick instead of a 2023 first round pick. Now allow me to explain. It's pretty well known in the hockey world that the 2022 NHL draft is not the best draft and certainly not a deep draft. But the 2023 draft, however, is both a better draft and will likely be a deeper draft. So it's a great move by the Bruins to keep that first round pick instead, which they could also trade if they wanted to. But if you're going to hang on to one of the 2 picks, keep it in the draft that's going to be better and deeper. And that leads us into our final segment, my thoughts on the trade. It's been very frustrating being a Bruins fan the past couple of days. We're not even at Monday yet, and so many big moves are happening. Watching Tampa give up multiple first-round picks and prospects for a guy like Brendan Hagel of the Blackhawks. Watching Florida go all in, they just brought in Claude Giroux for a very good prospect first-round pick. The Avalanche give up a second-round pick and a good prospect to get Josh Manson. The Sherratt deal with the Panthers. Watching all these teams who are going to be playoff contenders, and the Bruins hope to be playoff contenders, giving up big pieces and having the Bruins do nothing. And every season the Bruins say we're going for a cup, and then they trade for Lee Stempniak. Now last season they brought in Taylor Hall, but only because he fell into their lap for a second-round pick in Anders Bjork. And they got Curtis Lazar in that deal, so that deal was just too good to not make. But my point is, sometimes you have to pay a little bit more to get good, and if you're really serious about going on a run, get a good player and go on a run. And it sounds like the Bruins aren't done yet. And I love to hear that because every year it's so frustrating to hear the Bruins say they'll be buying in, and then we get John Michael Lyles or Nick Holden. And they're good players, they're players who will help, but it's not big moves, and you can't really be serious about the cup run. You can't both think about the future all the time and be serious cup contenders. You kind of got to pick one or the other. And so far the Bruins have done a good job at being both, getting guys like Pastrnak and McAvoy, while staying competitive the whole time. But at the end of the day, if this is really the last hurrah for the Bergeron core, you gotta go all in and you gotta be serious about it, because there are plenty of other teams in your division alone who are being serious about it and giving up big assets, and they don't care. Because the reason we play hockey in the NHL is to win the Stanley Cup. That's all that matters. And I want the Bruins to have a good core in the future, don't get me wrong, and they still have some draft picks. But let's be honest, guys, the Bruins are pretty hot and cold when it comes to the draft. They had 3 consecutive picks and probably what will go down as one of the deepest drafts in NHL history, and they didn't even get an impact player. Jake DeBrusk was the best guy they got, and he's nowhere near Barzal, Connor, or Shabbat. So I don't really care if the Bruins trade their picks. Yes, they got guys like McAvoy and Pastrnak, as I said, and they got them at a pretty good spot in the draft. But for every McAvoy and Pastrnak, you have a Zach Senyshyn. So I'm fine with the Bruins giving up picks, at least for now, because I'd much rather try and win the Stanley Cup right now than go into a 5-year rebuild. Without this becoming a 10-minute rant on the Bruins draft history, I just wanted to use that to prove my point that I'm okay with the Bruins giving up all those draft picks. Their draft history is kind of hot and cold recently, and I would much rather they go for the Stanley Cup this season. And at 28 years old, this is a guy who could help you this season and for many years after. In fact, he could be part of the next core when you move on from guys like Bergeron and Marchand. And at the time I'm recording this video, it's already being reported that the Bruins and Lindholm are working on a contract negotiation. And we all know by now that Don Sweeney's biggest strength is the contracts he gets guys to sign at under market value. So hopefully Lindholm is already one of those guys. I'm sure before they made this deal, that was already kind of being talked about, what Lindholm was looking for and what the Bruins were willing to offer. So that's probably why this deal was a little bit bigger too. And that's only a bonus for the Bruins, because if you get this guy for this season and many years after, it's totally worth what you gave up. You gave up some picks, so what? You're going on a run, you get a good player who will help you, and you get a legit pairing for Charlie McAvoy. And you also got rid of 2 players who you didn't really like anyway. You had Jon Moore buried in the AHL, and Vaakanainen isn't even one of your better prospects. In fact, that's one of the best parts about this trade that I haven't even mentioned yet. The Bruins made this blockbuster deal, and they still have all of Fabian Lysell, Jack Studnicka, Mason Lohrei, Jake DeBrusk, Brett Harrison, and Jack Ashan. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Now, they could still trade some of those assets in future deals, but as of right now, you still have all those young players, and you added a great impact player like Hampus Lindholm. I do hope they're able to sign him long-term. That would make this trade even better for the Bruins. He's going to be a fantastic fit, an absolute workhorse going down the stretch, and I think he'll be a great piece in the core moving forward if they're able to find a deal. And I can't wait to see how him and McAvoy elevate each other. That's all I got for you in this one. There's still a lot that could happen between now and Monday's 3 p.m. deadline, so let me know your thoughts. Who do you think the Bruins will bring in? Who would you like to see them get? Do you think they're done yet? Do you think Jake DeBrusk gets traded? And what do you think of the Lindholm deal? And do you think they're able to come to a contract extension? And if so, what do you think that number will be? Leave all that down below in the comments. If you're pumped to see Lindholm in the black and gold, give this video a big like, and if you haven't already, subscribe.